morning, friends and enemies. It is another Rico Weeko. It is the end of week 6. We've got 2 Monday night football games. La Noche. Is that tonight? I think Noche. Maybe nachos. Sorry to Spanish people out there. You know I don't speak French. We are basically done with week 6, and every Monday around noon, 1 p.m. Eastern time, we go back and recap every single game by game, and let y'all know about the biggest injuries, biggest snap count changes, biggest fantasy takeaways from every single game so that you are prepared going forward. All right. And that's what we're here doing today. Tomorrow we'll have our waiver wire video. Wednesday we will have our running back rankings video. Thursday wide receiver, and so on and so forth. So if you're new here, please subscribe to the channel. Help me pay my bills. My kids are hungry. It's week 6 and we're running out of food here. All right. So let's jump into the first game of the week. We had Thursday Night Football, Eagles and Giants. Obviously, the biggest takeaway here is on the Giants side of things. I mean, Jackson Dart and Cam Skattebo have the city on fire. They are burning down the streets of Manhattan for these two white boys. All right. First thing I think we need to acknowledge is the fact that Philly was playing without their two best defenders, 2 of their top 3 players on the overall roster. Jalen Carter was kind of a surprise scratch here, which obviously opened up the middle of the defensive line. Quinyon Mitchell got hurt in the middle of the game. I believe it was a hamstring tweak, which definitely could sideline him for future games going forward. They play at Minnesota and then the Giants again over the next coming weeks. But, I mean, Cam Skattebo in Tyrone Tracy's first game back, it was clearly all him. I think Tracy's probably going to get eased in more and more. But Skattebo just feels like, I mean, he's the player that he was in college. He has just basically transferred over that energy in full capacity to the New York Football Giants. So he's awesome. Jackson Dart keeps scooting on the ground. Wan'Dale Robinson gets home 6 for 84 and a touchdown. Without Malik, I mean, this is probably how the target shares are going to continue to kind of dice up here. In terms of like receiving weapons behind Robinson, I think it's going to be like a messy running back room where it's almost just like the hot hand who has the hot targets that week. Little Jordan Humphrey kind of gets home 4 for 55. He catches that one kind of deep pass from Jackson Dart down the sideline there. But, I mean, going forward, Jackson Dart's awesome in Superflex because he obviously brings that rushing upside. Skattebo's awesome just as a running back. He's also super fucking fun to watch. So that's pretty cool. But overall, the Giants 2-4 right now. Played the Eagles without basically their top 2 defenders. So, yeah, I mean, on the flip side for the Eagles offense, I don't know, man. They're stale. They're gross. I'd like to think that they're going to continue just trotting out the squad that they have and they'll figure it out and they'll get better. And I'm not concerned about them being a good team. Like, they're going to make the playoffs and they'll be fine. I do wonder, though, if A.J. Brown gets moved. Like, this is a very progressive, forward-thinking franchise that, with the locker room problems that are clearly happening, it's like a week in, week out basis now. And it was like, okay, when they were 4-0, but I imagine it's going to keep getting worse and worse if they continue to lose. And I said this a couple of weeks ago, and it was one of my concerns with A.J. Brown in the future was like, at some point, I feel like a team gets bored of just winning, and they also want all the individual accolades and statistics, and that's where it feels like A.J. Brown is kind of at right now. So, not a real takeaway here, but I guess I'm kind of like 55-45 in terms of like whether or not he's actually going to be traded. Again, Harry Roseman, very forward-thinking, smart GM. If he sees this as a real issue, I wouldn't be surprised if they cut bait sooner rather than later. What that offense will look like, I mean, it'll be tough. Like Goddard and Devontae Smith would see huge spikes, but overall, yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to take away from this team. Next up, we've got one of the most disgusting games maybe of all time in London. Broncos beat the Jets 13-11. The Jets are now 0-6. I know everyone's seen the stat at this point. Justin Fields, minus 10 net passing yards. I like that people go out of their way to use net passing yards as if that's a statistic that anyone has ever used at the NFL level, except for when they want to like paint a narrative here. Like in college, they take away rushing yards when you get sacked, obviously, and now people want to use it. And this is not defending Justin Fields whatsoever. He was not a guy that I wanted any part of in the summer, but I just think it's fucking so dumb that people love to throw that out right now. Regardless, he had 9 for 17, 45 yards through the air, 2.6 yards per attempt, and really didn't even get home on the ground. Just another example of this Denver defense being incredible. So at 0-6, yeah, I mean, again, Isaiah Davis is the one guy I'm kind of holding on to in this offense in case Breece Hall gets moved. Do I think it's realistic? Like, probably not, but you never know. Weird shit happens in the NFL, man. The last few years have felt more like fucking Madden than they have real NFL, like, technical accounting problems that need to be solved. Like it just feels like crazy shit happens in the NFL on a yearly basis when we're talking about transactions and moves and trades and things like that. So won't put it, at a high percentage, but I do think the chance that Breece Hall gets moved before the trade deadline, if they keep losing, could be, somewhere in the 10 to 15% range. And at that rate, I mean, you obviously want to roster a guy like Davis. Garrett Wilson got a little bit banged up at the end of the game here. It looked like a hip injury. They said it was a knee injury. From what I've gathered, it doesn't seem like it's overly concerning, but definitely something to keep an eye on if you're a Garrett Wilson owner. You also want Tyrod in the lineup at this point. I'm surprised they committed to Justin Fields already. Like, they don't have to act like he was like their number 5 overall pick. Like, I would get it if you just drafted him and we're 6 games into a season and you committed to him for the year. But like, you signed Justin Fields to a 2-year contract. You don't have to act like he's the future of your franchise. He's clearly not. So if this starts losing the locker room more and more, their next 3 games, Carolina, Cincinnati, bye, Cleveland. So, I mean, you'd have to think they get at least 1 win out of those 3 games. So, like, maybe things get a little bit better. But at this point, if you're in a super flex league, Tyrod Taylor should probably be rostered if you need some quarterback help. On the flip side, I mean, it's ugly for the offense. The Broncos end up getting home. Courtland Sutton got shadowed by Sauce Gardner in this one, which was ultimately a little bit of our concern going into the game. Like, I think it's impossible to sit Courtland Sutton for the most part in most leagues, but we did see Sauce travel with and shadow George Pickens fully in the week prior, and Pickens did get a lucky long catch off to save his fantasy day, but this is kind of the stat line that he would have had he not come home with that long touchdown pass, 1 for 17 for Courtland Sutton. But just nothing really cooking on the Broncos side of things. No success on the ground either. 14 carries for 40 yards for J.K. Dobbins. No involvement in the passing game. R.J. Harvey did catch 4 passes, but only 2 carries. If we look at the snap count splits over here on Fantasy Life, 51% for Dobbins, 28% of the snaps for R.J. Harvey. As you can see, obviously, the rushing attempts are super in favor of Dobbins, but you are seeing a little bit more of the passing production, I guess, go in the favor of R.J. Harvey. He's still running fewer routes because he runs so few. He plays on so many less base downs than Dobbins, so that's probably naturally going to be the cause. I mean, with R.J. Harvey, like, they've had incredible matchups, and he still can't really get it done. He's still a dude that you're just holding on to, hoping that after in the second half of the year that he sees a spike in his playing time, but it doesn't look great. Right now, it's just Dobbins and then everything else behind Dobbins. We had Tyler Bidet was a healthy scratch in this one in favor of Jaleel McLaughlin. I don't know if that was a special teams thing or whatever. He missed a fucking block or something last week, but not a huge takeaway there. Colts and the Cardinals. I mean, at this point, if you can't understand that the Cardinals have a Kyler problem, I don't really know what to tell you. I tweeted this out earlier today. I'm interested to see where Kyler Murray plays next year, because I would put pretty significant money that's not going to be for the Arizona Cardinals. Whatever I've been saying since the summer, it's just this offense is just so clunky and so unsmooth when he is the quarterback. And then it feels like when anyone else is under center, it's like they're just fine. Like, they could just move the ball pretty easily. And we saw that in this one. Colts win 31-27. Brissett fills in, throws for 320 yards, 2 touchdowns, despite losing Marvin Harrison Jr. to a concussion. Now, as we know, 50-50 chance, probably a little bit more than that, maybe 60-40 for him to play next week. The Cardinals play against the Green Bay Packers at home, so hopefully we'll have Marv in his absence. Trey McBride, 8 for 72 and a touchdown. We also had Zay Jones step in, 5 for 79, 8 targets. Michael Wilson, 4 for 44. Jacoby did see a spike in pass attempts, 44 of them. So, again, a lot of those numbers are going to be a little bit inflated there. But if you need to keep an eye out for the waiver wire, again, we will have that video going out around noon tomorrow. So subscribe to this channel. Also, our waiver wire rankings every single week, of course, with Fab suggestions, will be live on the website, bdge.co, for Big Dog members. Now, the backfield is where we saw a little bit of a twist and a turn here. Randomly, Adam Schefter tweeted out, like, Sunday morning, it's going to be Bam Knight playing a significant role in the backfield instead of Michael Carter. They still ended up playing a pretty split backfield. We don't really know how much Michael Carter would have played if Amari DiMercato did not get hurt. He twisted his ankle pretty early on and then was out for the remainder of the game here. Bam Knight, 11 carries, 34 yards. He does get the short goal line score, so that ends up like saving his fantasy day for people that ended up starting him over Michael Carter. But Carter still had 9 carries, ended up having the same output as Bam Knight on the ground with 34 yards. Carter played a lot of the passing down role here, where Amari DiMercato probably would have played. If we look at the snaps here, It was 49% in favor of Zonovan Knight, and 46 for Michael Carter. Routes in favor of Michael Carter, long down and distance, 2-minute drill. So that seems to be the way that they want to operate going forward. Again, they get Green Bay next week, so not an easy defense to play against. They get a bye after that, but then they get Dallas, so that's a really good matchup. Trey Benson, I think he should be out through their bye, so maybe he returns like week 10-ish, week 10, week 11. So I do think there's one more start out of a guy like Zonovan Knight maybe. Either way, I think they're both pretty risky, like running back 3 flex plays, even during bye weeks right now. So Michael Carter kind of got benched. He didn't play great last week. Like, he scored the touchdown, so he was fine for fantasy and got a lot of touches, but like he was averaging 3.1 yards per carry. And it's not that Bam Knight did much better this game here, 3.1 yards per carry. They're just not getting a lot out of their backfield right now. So, I think both of them are a little bit risky starting in your lineup regardless. On the flip side, a lot more the same. Daniel Jones gets home. Jonathan Taylor's the GOAT. Tyler Warren's also the baby GOAT. Down game for Michael Pittman for the first time this year, but nothing to be overly concerned about there. Chargers and the Dolphins. Pretty decent amount to take away here. So for the Chargers, Herbert played a fantastic game. 264, 2 touchdowns through the air. Kamani Vidal, big story of this game, of course. 18 for 124. Also adds 3 for 14 and a touchdown through the air. Now, in the backfield, in terms of the actual snaps, Kamani Vidal kind of dominated. 67%, ran the most routes, short down and distance, even took the long down and distance snaps here. So it was a really big Kamani Vidal backfield situation here. Now, on the waiver wire video last week, we preferred Kamani Vidal, not by an extensive amount, and I was skeptical about both of their roles. Kamani Vidal, if you started him, obviously, like, you're ecstatic about it. I will say, it's the Miami defense. Like, if you were playing against Miami, Dallas, Cincinnati, Carolina, like, you're basically entitled to a big fantasy day. If you don't have a big day, you've got problems. So this was one of the conundrums a little bit with LA in the backfield was we don't know who to start in the first week, right? And then one of them is probably going to have a good game against Miami because their defense is so porous. And then it's like, hopefully we feel good about them going forward. The Chargers, after Miami, play the Colts, the Vikings, they're at Tennessee, and then Pittsburgh. So not a crazy matchup against Indianapolis. So I think you could definitely start Kamani Vidal going forward. I will say, like, we're hearing back and forth reports of Amari Hampton possibly missing more time than the 4 weeks. Maybe it's 5 weeks, maybe it's 6 weeks. I still wouldn't be overly surprised if they went after a really cheap running back via trade, like a Jerome Ford or something like that. So I'm not positive that Kamani Vidal against the Miami Dolphins is what like unlocks full trust out of the coaching staff here. They clearly like him. They were using him late in the game. So like when the game is on the line, yes, they trust that guy. And that does make me feel a lot more confident with a guy like Kamani Vidal going forward. But overall, I still think like there's a chance they had somebody else. They played against Miami. I don't want to get like crazy with the ranking of Vidal going forward, but he was always a better fit for the way that the Chargers are playing their games now, which is why we had him ranked a little bit above Haskins in the waiver wire. They had another game of 69% neutral pass rate here. So in a neutral game, when the game's close, which it pretty much was most of the game, they were opting to throw the ball 70% of the time. So that's good for a guy like Kamani Vidal's skill set. In the receiving group, we had Quentin Johnson, who was limited at practice all week, so I was kind of surprised he didn't play in this one. Ladd McConkey finally had like his good game, 9 targets, 7 catches, 100 yards, and a touchdown. I know everyone's going to be like, is he back? Again, I think you have the combination of Johnson not being there, plus the Miami Dolphins' terrible secondary. I am way more in the camp of like, I think Ladd will be a fine, wide receiver 3, borderline 2 going forward than he is like, yeah, we're back to rookie Ladd. Doubtful. Oronde Gadsden was a big winner this week, though. 7 for 68. Didn't have a touchdown, but again, if Quentin Johnson misses, I do think you could probably do worse than him for streaming a tight end. On the flip side, Tua has a pretty bad day, even though I would say most of the picks were not his fault. It was a bounce off of Jalen Waddle's hand and then like a last throw, kind of like Hail Mary pick. So he played fine. Devon Achane was awesome. The Chargers' run defense is abysmal this year. Like everybody's getting home against their run defense, so they're much more of a pass funnel or a run funnel defense. So just know that going forward. And the rest of the receiving group is pretty much exactly how you'd expect it to be. Like everybody stinks behind Jalen Waddle. Darren Waller kind of gets home with a touchdown catch. So good to see he's still, involved, but it's basically H-Chan. I gotta be honest, man, like all the comments and the talking from Tua after the fact, like after the game, is weird. Like he came out and he was like, yeah, guys are not showing up to team meetings. We have to hold people accountable. Like someone's got to like tell us what Tua, you're the franchise fucking quarterback. You're the CEO of that goddamn company. You have to set the tone. Like you have to be the one that takes charge of the player meeting. Like you're the quarterback that just got a $250 million contract. Like who are you throwing under the bus, brother? Be aggressive. Be fucking assertive. Like what are we doing here? This franchise feels like it is just untying its shoes in the middle of a marathon right now. So I'm like, H-Chan, I have him in my big money league. He's been a fucking beast. I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't nervous about how this season plays itself out for the Miami Dolphins as a whole. New coaching staff or someone comes in, like, does that mean H-Chan gets less target? I don't know. I'm just saying this is like, the Miami Dolphins situation, not great right now. Patriots and the Saints, I mean, Drake May is playing lights out football, 261, 3 touchdowns. Also had multiple big plays called back for penalties on this one, so it could have been an even much bigger day for him. But he's playing at a legit MVP level. Keyshawn Butte gets home tomorrow. Douglas gets home. Diggs would have gotten home had he not been called off for a PI. Pop Douglas would have had an even bigger day. He got called off for a big touchdown as well. But yeah, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, like Butte, Douglas, we've kind of been here before. They have their big games, then we kind of lose our minds about it, and then they go back to being nothing burgers. And this was against the Saints, so another team that we just don't want to get over our skis about. That's really what fantasy comes down to. It's like guys being bad and then having a good game against a terrible defense, and everyone being like, they're back. We're back. Is my guy fixed? Did he get fixed in 4 days? No, he played against the worst fucking defense in the NFL. So I'm not going to lose my mind about either of those guys on the waiver wire. It's still very much the two guys I want to own are Diggs and Hunter Henry. The backfield is just not seeing any sort of success, unfortunately. We were hoping that, Antonio Gibson now out for the year, it condensed the backfield, but like, for what? For what? Did it help us with anything? No, it didn't. I mean, Ramondre's still leading the pack in snaps by a wide margin, 71% to Travion Henderson's 29%. Ran a significantly higher number of routes here. So, like, Travion's still absolutely unstartable. And Ramondre, like, his role should give him a start-worthy candidate for your teams. Like, he should be a rock-solid RB2. And he gets the goal line work. But, again, in a game like this where Drake May, 1, carries the ball 9 times, but 2, has a bunch of long touchdowns, a 53-yarder, 29-yarder, had a bunch of other ones called back. Like when you have those drive-ending types of touchdowns, again, like it is a little bit hard for running backs to compile touches and be, like build a case to have a big game here. Not saying like Ramondre had 13 carries, 18 yards, horrendous. Travion Henderson, not any better. So really hard to start either of them outside of just being shaky flexes going forward. On the flip side, Rattler's playing okay. Kamara has been wildly disappointing. Taysom Hill gets in there for 1 carry and steals the 1 goal line touch that they really have there. So he gets the touchdown. And that is one of the problems with playing anyone in this backfield right now is like Kamara had a little bit of a bounce back in the receiving game, 5 for 45, but that has not been a consistent part of his game this year. And then neither Kendre nor Kamara seem to be the guys that are going to get the goal line carries while Taysom Hill is back. So Olave gets home because he catches a 53-yarder, but a lot more of the PPR scam he's been. Juwan Johnson has seen a major fall off since the start of the year, so I don't even know if he's really streamable at this point. Moving to the Steelers at the Browns. The Browns get their asses beat 23-9. Dylan Gabriel, not a great performance. David Njoku was in and out of this game with like kind of a knee injury. He got banged up. He was in and out, and then I think he left for good at the end of it. So if that's the case, I mean, the target numbers for Fannin and Judy are crazy here. 13 for Judy, 10 for Fannin. Fannin would become like, I mean, think of Isaiah Likely without Mark Andrews. That's kind of the way I'm feeling about this. You have Dylan Gabriel, 52 pass attempts in this one. So the targets, if Njoku misses time, I'm going to be ranking Harold Fannin as easily a top 10, if not like a top 8, top 6 tight end for the foreseeable future. So keep an eye on that practice report. I don't think you can start any other wide receiver in this group. Judkins finally had a down game. I know people are going to like lose their minds over the fact that he didn't play a ton of snaps because they were trailing, but like he played like 90% of the snaps the last 4 weeks. Let's not take a dumb fucking stupid sample size and make it more than what it is there. Judkins is an every week starter moving forward. Steelers had our first game with Jaylen Warren back. Unfortunately, this has now turned into more of a committee than we would have liked for Jaylen Warren people. We got 11 carries for Warren, and he still looks great. He's definitely the best running back in that backfield right now. But we had 6 carries for Kenneth Gainwell, 6 for Caleb Johnson. We had more targets toward Kenneth Gainwell, 6 for him, only 2 for Jaylen Warren. So very messy backfield right now. Don't know what happens on the goal line there. Who is the goal line back? Probably Jaylen Warren, but who knows? So I think you got to throw him down a little bit in the rankings, and he's now more of like a flex play. Rodgers continues to play pretty well. DK Metcalf gets home. We did see a little bit of a flipping here at the tight end position. Darnell Washington, 3 for 62, 5 targets in this one. He did have like kind of like a breakaway run here. So again, I think some of these Steelers receivers, we've seen inflated numbers on a week-to-week basis based off just like catching a line of scrimmage type of play and taking it pretty fucking far, which is not like really predictive going forward. But where the hell are you, Steelers? There we go. So Darnell Washington in this one, 61% of the routes, still trailing Jonnu Smith, but a pretty healthy number here. They're just playing their tight ends at an insanely high rate here. 61% for Darnell, 71% for Jonnu Smith, 45% for Pat Freiermuth. Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not suggesting anyone start Darnell Washington anywhere, but it is worth noting, I think, in case he ends up becoming more of a full-time player here. Also, should say this site I'm using for snap counts, for routes run, for end zone targets, air yards, all this stuff. Phenomenal resource. FantasyLife.com. FantasyLife.com. This is part of one of their subscriptions. If you sign up and use any one of their Fantasy Life Plus subscriptions on here, if you purchase it, use code BDGE at checkout. You're going to get 20% off the subscription. This is a year-long subscription, so if you do it now, you'll have it through all the way through like half of next year. It is probably the single best resource in all of fantasy football right now. FantasyLife.com. The utilization report is worth the subscription by itself if you are a serious fantasy player. Moving to the Panthers at the Cowboys, and I mean, like, man, my idiot league mates team is just going fucking bonkers right now because, again, I just have all these guys that continue to play. It's like the Panthers, the Cowboys, the Dolphins it's just one giant orgy of them playing each other over and over again, and it's just the best 2 weeks ever, man. I have Pickens and Dowdle on the same team, Achane, Jamar Chase, like unbelievable week. We're about to put up 200 points in that league. Dak Prescott continues to get home without CeeDee Lamb, 261 and 3 touchdowns. Javonte Williams, really disappointing day. 13 for 29. This is the second week in a row that the Carolina Panthers have shut down a running back on the ground. Javonte, 2.2 yards per carry. Devon Achane last week, I think, was like 10 for 16 on the ground. I don't know that I'm like ready to buy into the Panthers being an elite run defense after being possibly the worst of the decade each of the last 2 years. So might just be a small sample size, unlucky for the running backs, whatever, but something to note there. And we have Miles Sanders out for the year. So Jadon Blue, again, is active, doesn't really get any run here. So could be stashed in deeper leagues, but I'm not overly optimistic about it. George Pickens, the GOAT, 11 more targets, 9 for 168 and a touchdown, man. Pickens is just so explosive with the ball in his hands. He's so fucking funny when he's on the field too, dude. Like when he makes the catch and he's got like anywhere from like 2 to 5 yards of open space, like he's going to do something fucking clown-like, bro. Like when he fell and then got up and made the catch, that was lit. And then the one play where he had like the defender coming at him and he like went to stiff arm him, I thought he was winding up to just throw a full-on haymaker at that defender. That would have been so gas. But Pickens is awesome. I mean, the big conversation to be had here on both sides is when these high-profile players come back from being hurt, what happens? CeeDee Lamb, I think he is trending towards a good direction right now. Week 7, they play at home versus Washington. I don't think it's a guarantee that CeeDee Lamb plays next week. I think it's like 50-50 right now. I think he's been back at practice in some capacity, kind of working off to the sideline. Looks okay. Now, this will be the 4th game that he missed if he does miss, right? They didn't put him on IR because this is right around the time when they were like, we might get him back for the 4th game. So not a guarantee, but also could be with CeeDee Lamb here, which obviously is a downgrade to Jake Ferguson, who gets a lot of the targets over the middle, ends up scoring another touchdown in this week. Obviously a downgrade to George Pickens. Like George Pickens has been over the last 2-3 weeks probably probably the wide receiver one. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head since CeeDee Lamb went down, but I can't imagine there's been many producers at a higher level than Pickens. Obviously, he's not going to be that when CeeDee Lamb is gone, but great to see that they can scheme up targets for him. I also still think that like when Pickens is on the field with CeeDee Lamb, like he's not going to see shadow from guys like Sauce Gardner. He's not going to see a heavy dose of the JC Horn, so it could leave him even more open. And we are just seeing Dak Prescott playing some of the best football of his career right now through the air. This is a really bad defense, letting up a ton of points a game. I just think it's going to be crazy high volume for the remainder of the season. So Pickens, for me, feels like, I don't know, almost like T. Higgins last year when he was healthy, right? Like a very, very high-end wide receiver 2 that just feels fucking great and can have these blow-up weeks any given week. On the flip side, Bryce Young, 3 more touchdowns. And the GOAT, Rico Dowdle, 30 carries. I don't know how that man is like standing today. I don't know how he's alive right now. 30 carries, 183 more yards on the ground, 4 for 56 and a touchdown through the air. So we're talking about almost 240 more yards from scrimmage, another touchdown in this one. Just like one of the more unbelievable 2-game stretches from a running back. Now, the first thing that needs to be said on a serious note, again, the Cowboys and the Dolphins. You simply can't get a better 2-game matchup than those two. I think that was that the start for Jacksonville's too? No, they had Carolina, Cincinnati. So fucking close, kind of different team, same team, whatever. When you have these matchups, like you have to pop off. Did I expect them to go 200 back-to-back? Yeah, hell yeah, I did. You know, that's just me. I got a big brain. Of course I expected Rico to go for 250 back-to-back. Question now is what happens when Chuba returns? Is it a guarantee that he returns next week? I don't think so, but I guess I'm expecting him to. He didn't practice at all this week, so we'll have to see if he opens up as a DNP on Wednesday, Thursday, whatever. Carolina plays the New York Jets, so if Chuba doesn't go again, I mean, I don't know how we can't rank Rico as like a top 3, if not the fucking number 1 overall running back right now in fantasy on a week-to-week basis. He's the GOAT. I'll never ever forget this 2-game stretch from Rico Dowdle, for real. I'm as a Falcons fan, it's really hard for me right now not to buy a Rico Dowdle Panthers jersey. I'm gonna keep it 100 with you, man. I'm having trouble not buying one. What happens when Chuba comes back? I don't know. I haven't made up my mind about what direction I expect this to go. I think it's going to go in one of 2 ways. I think either Chuba gets back and they slow play him back into the lineup. Like they let Rico continue to rip and they're just like, yeah, Chuba's not, we want him to get acclimated again. We want to make sure we don't push his calf or whatever. So I think there's a good chance we get another really good game out of Rico in this upcoming one against the Jets if Chuba plays. I can also see sometimes, like, I know that the locker room is probably rallying around Rico Dowdle, but there are some coaches that have a stance of like, guys don't really lose their starting spot while being injured. And Chuba's a guy that they absolutely love in Carolina. He's a captain of their team. He just got the contract last year. I mean, there's no world where this is not a pure committee going forward. Like, there's no world that Chuba Hubbard comes back and he's a 75% snap guy. The genie's out of the bottle at that point. The problem would become if this is a 50-50 split here. The problem would be if Chuba comes back and then I could see them being like, yeah, Chuba's our starter. Like, he's our guy. He's our guy on the contract. Like, he's our captain of our team. I also wouldn't be surprised if Chuba comes back to a full practice this week and he's the starter. Doesn't mean I think he'll out-snap Rico, 75-25, but I could see there being a world where, again, when they're playing against tougher matchups, like we saw what this backfield was when they're not playing against the Cowboys, when they're not playing against teams like Miami last week. When they're playing against real defenses, like they're going to average 3.5, 4.2 yards per carry, right? It's not going to be all rainbows and fucking butterflies for Rico Dowdle. Wish it was, but it's just not the case. So I don't know what really happens right now. I'm hoping they just keep letting Chuba sit for another week. That'd be incredible because they have, who do they got? They got the Jets next week. They got Buffalo, who's not like a fantastic run defense by any means. So, I mean, man, I need another game from Rico. Like a fucking crackhead needs the pipe, man. I need another Rico game. I'll have a more solidified take during the running back video on Wednesday. Like every week we do the running back rankings video. I go game by game again, ranking every single player as a start, flex, sit, whatever. So we'll hopefully have more news by then. So subscribe to the channel if you want to hear a more solidified take on it. I just think there's a lot of uncertainty around the situation right now. Dave Canales continues to come out and just say it's a good problem to have right now that we have to solve. And I agree with them. Listen, from a real life standpoint, you now have two pretty fucking solid running backs in the backfield right now, and they don't give a fuck about fantasy football. They should. They really should. It should be top priority for them, but they're a fucking joke out here. Jalen Coker will return next week, by the way. So if you had him stashed, keep him stashed. Seahawks and Jacksonville. Sam Darnold continues to play lights out. 295, 2 through the air. JSN continues to play lights out. 8 for 162 and a touchdown. I mean, he's got to be one of the top guys for Offensive Player of the Year at this point. 13 targets on 27 pass attempts from Sam Darnold is insane. A.J. Barner had a decent day because he broke off just like a broken cover 61-yard catch, but we're not looking too much into that. The backfield continues to be what the backfield is. Kenneth Walker makes cool plays, is not overly involved. Zach Charbonnet gets all the goal line work. If he doesn't score a goal line touchdown, he has absolutely no floor, which is what we saw. So, again, they're both like shaky flexes pretty much going forward. Jacksonville is not a walkover defense by any means. So, in games where Seattle's playing a very tough run defense, like this is what we can expect. Maybe one of them scores a touchdown and you get lucky, but otherwise, again, shaky starts at this point. On the flip side, again, like Jacksonville lost, but I really like what I'm seeing from their offense. Like I really think they're starting to click on the offensive side of the ball, especially Trevor Lawrence and their passing game. If you didn't watch this game, T-Law, 258, 2 touchdowns through the air. So good game from him. Seattle was without Julian Love, starting safety, Devon Witherspoon, and Tyreek Woolen. So their entire secondary was out. So this is not like, again, Brian Thomas, he's back. Love what I saw from him yesterday. But again, this is like a running back playing against Dallas, like a running back playing against Miami, like a running back playing against Cincinnati. Way more of the matchup-induced effectiveness than it was actually like, okay, this is so predictive going forward. BTJ, though, looked really good. He's kind of getting away from the yips. Again, if you watch the game, you'll see BTJ, again, pulled up over the middle on a ball that should have been caught. You could tell he got scared, heard the footsteps again. So should have caught that ball. Also had a bullet from Trevor Lawrence over the middle that would have been, I believe, a third down conversion. Would have been like a 20-yard pass that just went right through his hands. Didn't look scared, just a pure drop there. And then, of course, a 55-yard connection from Trevor Lawrence to Brian Thomas Jr. for a touchdown down the right sideline, like bounced off the cornerback. He caught it, scored a touchdown. Flag because Travis Hunter's fucking dumbass lines up like a foot over the line of scrimmage, and they call him for, being offsides, of course. And what pisses me off the most is it wasn't like a holding penalty. It wasn't like an OPI where it's like, okay, the play probably doesn't happen if that penalty doesn't happen. But Hunter had no effect on the fucking play. Hunter didn't matter. Him being 6 inches over the line didn't matter. That fucking drove me crazy. So we were looking at like almost a career legacy game for both Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas Jr. Trevor Lawrence has now put it together in multiple weeks in a row. So feeling pretty good about this passing offense. Brian Thomas Jr. would have had a legendary day if that touchdown connected. The running game is struggling, but again, Seattle, this is such a pass funnel defense at this point with the amount of banged up secondary players they have without their entire starting cornerback group out. Their run defense is really, really tough to run against. That being said, though, ETN has always kind of been a questionable runner. Like, he's had big explosive plays this year, and that's kind of how he's made his dough throughout his, first 4 or 5 seasons or whatever. I don't think he's the best in between the tackles runner, and in tough matchups, he's probably going to struggle more often than not. So, moving to the Rams and the Ravens. So, Rams take care of business, 17-3. Overall, pretty sloppy game. I think the probably the biggest and the only takeaway of this entire game is the fact that Puka Nacua got banged up. So from what I'm understanding, they have their bye in week 8. Very good chance he misses week 7. They play in London against Jacksonville next week. So if you have Puka, would very much be on the lookout for a replacement player. I think Puka's probably going to miss. From what I've gathered, not a serious long-term injury. Likely to miss this upcoming week. They have their bye. Should be good to go following that. So, Puka teams, he's carried you up to this point, but you're going to have to be a good fucking fantasy football player for the first time this year in week 7 and week 8 and figure it out without Pookie Bear. All right? That's probably what's going to happen here. In his absence, Tyler Higbee gets a little bit involved. Devontae Adams should see about 1 billion targets going forward. You have Jordan Whittington behind him. Tutu Atwell did not play in this game, so we'll have to see the injury reports or the practice reports for next week. Am I overly excited about any of them? What I ultimately think is going to happen is his passing game is going to have trouble moving the ball against Jacksonville. Like, without Puka, he is such a chain mover. He is such a reliable target for Matt Stafford that I just think he's probably going to force a lot of targets to Devontae Adams. And I don't think Adams can really play the slot the way that Puka can and really like hold down that role for him. So I just imagine that this offense overall struggles a little bit more without, shockingly, the offensive player of the year right now. So I'm not overly excited to pick up Whittington or Tutu Atwell. I do think Whittington would probably be like the 1-for-1 replacement for Puka. They have a very similar play style. He's an okay PPR play, I think, for week 7, assuming Puka misses. But I don't imagine I'm going to have him ranked inside like my top 30 or 35 wide receivers. He's more of a desperate fill-in for you. But I think he should have a decent amount of targets next week. But again, Jacksonville is no like pushover defense, so it's not like it's a great matchup for them. Overseas, those games are typically pretty sloppy as well. On the flip side, I mean, Derrick Henry has a good game, but we just need Lamar back, and they have their bye in week 7. So after that, week 8, we should get him back. Raiders, Titans. I don't even want to talk about this game. Calvin Ridley pulled his hamstring. He's going to be out probably multiple weeks. The Titans have just legitimately not improved at all. They're 6 weeks in. They haven't improved at all. Like, they make fun plays every now and then, but they're just bad. I guess for Tony Pollard owners, we can look at the backfield split. Tajay Spears played a lot more snaps in this one. He actually outsnapped Tony Pollard 60% of the snaps to 43. In raw numbers, that's 35 to 25. Obviously, because the game script was in favor of a pass catching back. And, we talked about that a lot last week where Tajay Spears was kind of just getting his feet wet. But we expected him to see a much more prominent pass catching role, and we did so. So he saw 76% of the 2 and 4 minute drill snaps, 80% of the long down distance, and surprisingly, 89% of the short down and distance snaps, which is a little bit funky and probably something I need to look into a little bit more. But yeah, definitely going to be a big hit to Tony Pollard's numbers. And at this point, he's almost like Chase Brown, where it's like you probably need a touchdown from him to get home, and you're in an offense that's just not scoring a lot of touchdowns right now. I guess in his absence, Calvin Ridley, Van Jefferson, 4 for 75. Maynard would still be the guy that I'm looking at in this receiving group because we've already seen him have chemistry with Cam Ward, and I think he'll have some good days ahead. But, hard to be excited about anything in Tennessee's offense. Geno Smith continues to play pretty poorly. They do sneak away with the win. Ashton Genty, another 25 touches in this one, does get in for the touchdown. Trey Tucker, 5 for 70, so he continues to be a decent flex play for you. Jacoby Myers has really fallen off a cliff. I don't really have a good explanation other than I guess like Geno Smith and Jacoby Myers' skill sets don't mesh very well, but like that wasn't the case early on, so I have a hard time believing that. I just think it's Geno Smith's play is just not great right now. And I think one of my sharper calls of the week was that Michael Mayer was a phenomenal streaming option if you needed help at tight end. So anyone out there that picked up and started Michael Mayer this week with Brock Bowers out, shout out to you. Shout out to me. I think he's a great streaming option. Again, as long as Brock Bowers is out, which I think I expect him to be into the week 8 bye. They play at Kansas City in week 7. We just saw Sam Laporta have a pretty good day. I think Michael Mayer and Sam Laporta have a very, very similar skill set, very, very similar type of players in those two. So this is just, again, this is a very, very similar situation to Rico Dowdle in the Panthers backfield. It's like when they're the only player in that situation in an offense that produces at that particular position, like they're going to have good games. So again, not surprising. Michael Mayer is going to be another good streaming option in week 7. Packers, Bengals. So it was a lot of the same, a lot of what we expected. Josh Jacobs kind of dominated the game script against the terrible Cincinnati Bengals defense. They cannot stop a fucking cold in the summer. They just let drives go on for like 10 minutes at a time. So Jacobs, huge day. Matthew Golden, 3 for 86. Didn't really see much of a post-bye rookie bump, to be honest with you. I think the snaps were all pretty much exactly the same. He only saw 5 targets. But again, they did not have to pass the ball a lot. Like, you don't need to ask Jordan Love to do much in order to win that game. So when we look at the snaps, yeah, I mean, it's still Romeo Doubs ahead of everybody. Matthew Golden, 68%. Dontavian Wicks did get hurt in this one. Malik Heath filled in. Christian Watson is going to be back sooner rather than later. I believe they opened his practice window, so wouldn't be surprised if we saw him back on the field within the next 2 weeks or so, which I do think makes this situation even more murky. Jaden Reed should be back. Probably a little later. We're probably still like 3 or 4 weeks away from that, but it will get messy here in the receiving group pretty soon for the Green Bay Packers receiving room. But nobody gives a fuck about that right now. We can talk about Joe the GOAT Flacco. Really, really bad first half. But then, he kind of turned it up in the second half. You could tell he was just gaining more and more trust with his receivers. It felt like he was a little bit gun shy in the first half. Things were happening fast. The Packers were getting to him in the backfield quickly. Only took 1 sack, which is good behind this offensive line. But second half, he was more so just like, okay, Jamar Chase is literally somewhere in the vicinity. Let me chuck it up. And like, holy fuck. If you forgot how talented Jamar Chase was as a receiver, yesterday was like the biggest, fattest reminder of that. That dude had like, oh my God, some of the plays that he made as a receiver, like some of the strongest hands you have just ever seen. The concentration that he pulls balls in with it's just like otherworldly. So 12 targets, 10 catches, 94 and a touchdown. T. Higgins, again, this was one of the biggest things that I felt like with Flacco coming in, gives T. Higgins a usable floor again in fantasy. We can probably put the days of 2 catches for 17 yards behind us, 5 for 61, good one, 8 targets here. And again, Cincinnati's schedule starts to lighten up now. We just had like the worst run out at Minnesota, at Denver, Detroit, at Green Bay. They get Pittsburgh, who, again, I think is a defense to keep your eye on. They finally got back Joey Porter Jr. They finally got back Jalen Ramsey. They got back a lot of their secondary, and you can tell against the Cleveland Browns what they did yesterday. So I think the Pittsburgh defense is going to be a much better second half of the year play. That being said, I don't think they're overly scary. They play on Thursday Night Football, so it's a quick turnaround for Joe Flacco. And again, I think based on that quick turnaround, you're just going to do what you know, and that is probably throw the ball to Jamar Chase. After Pittsburgh, they get the Jets, they get Chicago, and then they get their bye. So again, easier matchups ahead. Still start Jamar Chase every week, but I do think, again, this makes T. Higgins a usable player. Chase Brown continues to be pretty terrible flex play at this point. I also just saw a super chat come through. As you could tell, I'm very locked in on the stream. I don't do super chats. I don't answer questions. I don't do anything during these Monday recap streams. I just try to give you all value straight to your face holes the entire time. So I appreciate the super chats, but I don't want y'all to waste your money because I probably will not get around to answering those questions. We just yap for fucking 1 straight hour. Moving to the Buccaneers and the 49ers. The 49ers still dealing with more injuries. Fred Warner, another disgusting blow to him. He's going to be out for the year, unfortunately. Put him next to Nick Bosa, and this defense is just in shambles at this point. Mac Jones, 347 through the air, 2 interceptions, no touchdowns though. So he doesn't play his best game, but I wouldn't say most of it is really on him at this point. Bourne, another 5 for 142 game. I mean, Juwan Jennings is, he's like a dead person out on the field at this point. He came out after the game and said, I got 5 broken ribs. I got high ankle sprain, low ankle sprain. Like, brother, take a nap, go to bed or something. You don't need to be playing. Like, we know you're tough. You're not helping your team at this point. You're just wasting space on the field. So like, I don't know. San Fran doesn't have their bye until week 14. So I'd like to say it's going to get better, but as someone who has broken his ribs before, there's nothing you could do besides wait. Like on that 2-point conversion he caught a couple weeks ago, where I'm sure 3 or 4 of them cracked on that hit. That's where it happened. Like, there's nothing you could do besides wait for time to heal those ribs. All right. So, yeah, Juwan Jennings at this point, I have him in my big money league. He's not going to sniff my lineup until I feel like he's fully healthy. And if Ricky P doesn't go, if George Kittle doesn't go, then you start Kendrick Bourne again. With those 2 injuries, I don't think they're guaranteed to play next week. I don't think Brock Purdy is guaranteed to play next week. I think they're probably all around 50-50. I think there's a decent chance that 1, if not 3 of them don't play. From what I'm hearing, Ricky P is definitely 50-50, not a guaranteed guy to play next week. I think that's the case with all of them. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw an exact run back with this current offense in week 7. They play Atlanta at home. So not a great matchup, but honestly, when this offense is as condensed as it is between just these few guys, it's pretty easy to just pick and choose who you should be playing. And Mac Jones is like literally, he's basically just Matt Stafford. He's just like a kingmaker at quarterback. When you put him at quarterback, your fantasy wide receiver is going to fucking go bonkers when there's only one of them. What else is going on here? On the flip side, Baker's a GOAT. Rashad White continues to dominate as Bucky Irving is out. Bucky's another one where I would say like 50-50 to play in week 7. So if you're like a Bucky and Rashad White owner, I think at this point, for at least week 7, you're like, just sit out, Bucky, and let Rachaad White continue to be a workhorse and get fully healthy for the stretch run. I mean, the receiver room, this is what we got to figure out here, because we have Mike Evans, who has missed 3 weeks so far. He didn't get put on the IR, so it's possible he returns in week 7, maybe week 8. You have Jalen McMillan obviously out, and now you have Emeka Egbuka, who suffers a hamstring strain. Now, hamstring strains are multi-week injuries, you know. He's going to miss week 7. I would guess he's probably going to miss week 8, and then they have a bye in week 9. So if I had to put my money somewhere, it's Egbuka returning in week 10. If it's a serious strain, then maybe week 11. But we're going to miss some time with Egbuka. And now we have to figure out what's the receiver room here. We got Cameron Johnson, a guy I've never even heard of before yesterday, 4 for 64 and a touchdown. Everyone saw the highlight catch. Tez Johnson, 1 for 45, like just on his fingertips. Baker Mayfield with one of the fucking best throws of the year for that long touchdown. But again, only 1 catch in that one. K. Dotton, I think, is a sneaky winner as a tight end streamer. With all these guys out, he's a guy that steps up and becomes a really big part of an offense when they need him to be. So he leads the team in targets in this one. K. Dotton, I think, a big winner with all the injuries. Sterling Shepard, really hard to just like decipher what's going on in this receiver room. I kind of like Tez Johnson. I kind of like Sterling Shepard. I kind of like K. Dotton. Do I love any of them? I don't think so. They play at Detroit next week, so the over-under is probably going to be pretty fucking high in that game. So Baker will need to throw the ball quite a bit. I think K. Dotton feels like someone I like the most, at least in terms of like predictability. He'll probably take shots to Cameron Johnson, who looked good. He'll take shots to Tez Johnson, who's performed well in multiple games this year. So I think they're all worth adding, just on the speculation that all the receivers are missing a ton of time, and Baker's just playing he's out of his fucking mind right now. He's so fun to watch, but I'll have a much more detailed breakdown for the waiver wire in tomorrow's waiver wire video. But obviously the Egbuka injury hurts a lot of fantasy owners, unfortunately, for the time being. Yeah, Big Dog members get the waiver wire rankings as well as fab suggestions for all of the players. And then we will finish off with the Sunday Night Football game, Kansas City Chiefs versus the Detroit Lions. Honestly, no real takeaways from the Detroit Lions side of things. For Kansas City, I mean, they look fully back. That offense, it feels like as soon as they have one of Xavier Worthy or Rashee Rice playing, they're just like a different level of offense. And now Rashee Rice's suspension is done. He will return to lineups in week 7. They play the Raiders, the Commanders, at Buffalo before their bye. That is a nice stretch. Rashee Rice, for me, will go immediately into my rankings as a top fucking 10 wide receiver. That's just being extremely non-confrontational. He'll probably be like a top 5 guy for me off the rip. Xavier Worthy, he gets in for a touchdown. Not a very high level of involvement right now, unfortunately, but I think he's a fine wide receiver 3 flex play when Rashee Rice returns. I'm interested to see what happens to Kelsey, who's actually been pretty good, but not surprising when Rashee Rice is out. I'm interested to see what his involvement looks like when Rashee Rice is back. I could see him taking a very, very big dip. And then it's going to be hard to trust any of the receivers behind Rice and Xavier Worthy going forward. The backfield was more of a shit show. Pacheco got the yardage here. No one ended up scoring a touchdown in the backfield, so a bunch of low-floor games. Once again, for the Kansas City backfield. And yeah, you can't start any of them, obviously, at this point, unless you're very, very, very desperate. I think those are all the takeaways from the Chiefs and the Lions game. Something in me feels like I'm missing something. I can't figure out just what. Is there something I'm missing in this Chiefs-Lions game? What is it? Nah, just a bunch of fucking... Just a bunch of trade questions. Bucky out. Bucky confirmed out. Oh, Bucky's already ruled out. Okay, fire. Not fire because I'm playing against Rachaad White owner next week. God damn. Okay. Didn't realize he was already ruled out. Was that a something that came in while we were recording this? Or am I just an idiot and I didn't know that? Mike Gesicki will be out for a while. Skirt. All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up there. Appreciate you guys for hanging out. As always, if you guys want to be the most tapped into fantasy football, the best way to do so is by heading to fantasylife.com. They are sponsoring this video, but as you know, I absolutely love this tool and could not recommend it more to you guys. Fantasylife.com, any subscription on there using code BDGE will be 20% off the full price. They are year-long subscriptions, so you will have this through like week 7 of next year. Obviously, you could just re-up after that, but absolutely best tool in the game if you just want to recap shit by yourself afterwards, all right? So fantasylife.com, link will be in the description. If you want the waiver wire rankings, the weekly rankings, bdge.co, become a Big Dog member. I love y'all. I'll see you in the waiver wire video tomorrow. If you are subscribed, good luck tonight if you've got matchups. I will see y'all tomorrow. So, smoochies. Shout out Rico Dowdle.